Okay, so we're here with Cory Wright, managing broker of William Wright Commercial. How are you doing, Cory?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. We should say you're a fan favorite.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Absolutely a fan favorite. And we also should say that we are not really having you back in the former studio. We're in the bento box, which is pretty exciting.
It's gorgeous.
You're the first guest in the bento box.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad yet.
Well, when Matt usually is in a bento box, it's usually this portion of his face in a motorboating rhythm. So this is a new thing.
I understand what that means.
It means you're eating it ferociously. Yeah, we are in the bento box. Also, we should say that we are being recorded. Our good friend Rami from RamiFilms.com is helping us out today. So thank you, Rami, in advance.
Yeah, okay.
Cory, maybe start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself.
So my name's Cory Wright. I'm the managing broker with William Wright Commercial Real Estate Services. And we got 3 boutique offices in Vancouver, New West, and Langley. And we're very pleased to let everyone know that we have acquired property and we'll be going to Victoria next year.
So this is the exciting thing. Like, we've had you on, I think, twice before.
Yeah.
Once to talk just about, well, both times to talk about the Vancouver commercial real estate market, right? Today, after meeting with you, a week or two ago and hearing about Victoria and how excited you were about Victoria, we thought we'd have you back. Can you tell us why you guys are so excited about Victoria?
Well, I think if you look at it sort of from our business standpoint in commercial, when people are looking at investing and we're obviously watching developments and we're watching stuff like that take place, Victoria's kind of going through what looks to be kind of like what Vancouver went through 10 years ago. Like, they're going through a major development boom. They're having sort of big city problems on a smaller scale. They have things like landlocked issues like we have over here. And right now you have so many people moving into that marketplace that once people start moving in, that sort of creates demand for commercial product through jobs. And that's sort of where we come in on the leasing side and also on the investment side. So I think when you look at it overall, I mean, we love all the numbers that Victoria has. It's great investment opportunities all the way around. It's great business opportunities for people moving over there and to get established. So we like all that stuff and want to be a part of it for sort of from the ground level where it is now, and then hopefully over the next 10 years help sort of lead the way over there and sort of give them some education of what we've gone through over here over the past 10 years.
It's so a lot of people in Canada, when they think Victoria, they think newlywed, nearly dead.
Yeah.
How is that changing?
It's changing dramatically over there. And I think one thing too that's really driving the market is you look at UVic, and it has grown exponentially. They have this year about 21,800 students. That's up about 39% over the past 5 years.
Wow. Yeah,
and one of the
incredible.
biggest things you're finding over there is before people that would go to UVic, they would come back to Vancouver, Seattle, Alberta for jobs, that you're finding more and more companies are putting offices and placement in Victoria that a lot of these people can now stay, which is sort of leading to a demand on the development side and the housing crunch.
And there's also tech over there, right? Like, this is the thing a lot of people don't know about Victoria.
Tech is one of the major driving industries over there right now. It's always been supported by government and all of that stuff, but tech over there is kind of going through what we're going through over here on a smaller scale. There's some major tech companies that are either in the marketplace now or looking to get into that marketplace. It's going to create a lot of jobs. I think when they look at like the Amazons of the world and stuff like that, they look at the employment opportunity, the talent we have here, and the education levels we have to teach this talent. It's a lot cheaper for them to have people up here, say, than maybe down in Silicon Valley. And I think that's creating a lot more jobs in the Victoria marketplace. It's adding another industry to what's feeding that marketplace over there.
So we had, and this is going to be like a companion piece. We spoke to Rick Hugendorn, another friend of the show, a realtor over in Victoria. And, you know, he's big on areas like Langford.
Yeah.
He mentions a couple others, and we'll let everybody listen to that. But where are you excited about on the commercial side? Like, where are you looking in Victoria as kind of the key places that you'd be thinking about investing?
Well, I think, like, you know, Langford's great. I mean, they've seen about a 20 to 21% boom in population over the past few years, which is hard to find probably anywhere.
Right.
I mean, it's a great marketplace over there. We love the downtown Victoria marketplace, which is kind of a sort of our bread and butter. Downtown Victoria, a lot of the buildings are heritage designation, so there's not a lot of development opportunity. So that's sort of creating some sort of suburban downtown areas like a Yaletown, which would probably arguably be kind of like your Harris Green district, which you're getting a lot of young professionals move in, a lot of development going on in that corridor. You got kind of like the Old Town area, which is probably their version of like a gas town, which they're getting a lot of development kind of in that corridor. So we like both of those areas. I mean, Victoria hasn't sort of had the office demand that we've had over here, nor have they kind of had the strata boom that we've had over here. So that's slowly looks like it's starting to take place over there. So I think anything you can find in kind of the surrounding neighborhoods of downtown, you'll probably do really, really well over the coming years.
Wow, that's great. And so, okay, so thinking about commercial real estate, what property type would you be focused on?
Well, I think over there, there's not a lot of retail opportunity. You have the downtown area, but after you get outside of that, and from what we've sort of been told over the years, that downtown is a big driver, obviously, of tourism in the area. So in the wintertime, it may not be as busy. You're looking kind of out into like the Harris Green district where all the buildings are going, and a lot of the buildings have sort of retail on grade. So I think if you can kind of get into a retail leasing opportunity, you're going to kind of watch kind of like a Yaletown market kind of emerge, where you're going to get a lot of young professionals that will sort of go home, go out for dinner and drinks and all that stuff in those particular marketplaces. So that I think is probably a pretty good entry point for a lot of people.
Right. And so thinking about that entry point, so Vancouver, our commercial prices in areas like Yaletown are astronomical, right?
Big time.
What can people expect if they were to look at spaces in, say, like the Harris Green district?
You see a lot of prices out there around the $500 to $600 a foot price point, sort of on vacant shell space. You see those numbers creep up the further sort of some sub-markets out there. So I think if you could kind of get something into something like there, the biggest difference looking over there versus over here is the capitalization rates. Over here, buying that same product in a Yaletown, you might be getting something around a 2.5% or even a 3% cap rate. You take that same product and you put it in Victoria in an emerging market, you might get anywhere between a 5 to even maybe a 5.5 cap rate type of thing. So you're getting a better annual return on it. I also think if you look at markets like Yaletown that have had a huge run on the lease rates over the years, going back, 10 years ago, you might have found product in that marketplace 30, 35, 40 on the retail side. That same product has crept up into like the high 90s in some areas around the SkyTrain station. This product in Victoria, you're finding around $30 to $35 a foot. So if I can acquire something with a greater return annually at a cheaper price point, but I also have the opportunity for these lease rates to potentially, double, maybe triple over the next 5, 10, 15 years, that's going to add the equity in my property.
That seems like one of the most interesting things about Victoria is that the cash flow, the cap rates are better.
Yeah.
But the appreciation, at least in your mind, seems like it's kind of either on a trajectory that's going to be similar to Vancouver, or even looking back 10 years ago, there's a potential in the future for the run-up that we've seen here, if I understand correctly.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I think as Vancouver becomes a tougher and tougher market to make money in, that people will be looking maybe to transition some money outside of the Vancouver area. And Victoria has a lot of similarities to what Vancouver is. And I think a lot of people can relate, going back 10 years ago, watching what Vancouver's gone through, trying to get in maybe that early ground level where I think if you told someone to buy something in Yaletown in the early 2000s, they would just shake your head at you. Well,
Right.
now they've probably been retired twice over if they
Yeah.
bought a strata lot.
Right.
So I think when people can relate to that, and I think when you look in Victoria's standpoint, is you have a lot of similar stats that we have here. From a multifamily standpoint, you have a sub 1% vacancy rate, which makes it very attractive for investors. Retail, there's not a lot of vacancy in the downtown core and the suburban markets. So if you can get in to a marketplace that doesn't have a lot of trade-offs for probably half the price, with my opinion, probably greater mid to long-term potential, I think that's what a lot of investors will open their eyes up to.
And so what I'm hearing basically is if you had the choice to buy commercial in Vancouver or commercial in Victoria right now, you're probably heading to Victoria.
I think Victoria, because from a dollar standpoint, like, your money doesn't know where it goes. So if I can go into a similar type product for probably half the price at a better annual return, and I think you probably have better mid to long-term potential on it, I would go over there versus maybe sticking around in Vancouver today.
So Cory, you're the resident expert on the commercial side here on the show. Would you buy? So we've established you'd buy in Victoria as opposed to Vancouver right now.
Yeah.
Would you consider residential, or are the opportunities primarily in commercial for you?
Well, the nice thing with commercial is you have triple net leases. So as your additional rent costs, like your property taxes and your strata fees and all that, climb year over year, those costs can get passed on to your tenant. So I like that before we start.
Can you just unpack that for
Sure, yeah.
people that don't know what you're talking about?
So in most leases, you have a base rent price, which is sort of the fair market price that you negotiate. And then you have your additional rent costs, your CAM costs, your triple net costs. Those are the operating costs for the landlord, your property taxes, strata fee, management fees. And those costs get passed down to the tenant on an annual basis. And as those costs increase, they further get passed down to the tenant. Versus in residential, if someone's paying me $2,000 for rent, out of that $2,000, I got to pay all my costs out of that. As my property taxes increase, as my strata fees increase, my rent may not increase as much to keep up with that. Versus in commercial, it just purely gets passed down to the tenants.
Right. Okay, so that's number one.
Number one.
Number one positive for commercial.
Number one positive.
It's a fairly big positive.
And I think if you look at it, if I was to look at residential, it'd be in a multifamily capacity. Multifamily over here in Vancouver, you might get something between 2.5%, maybe a 3% cap rate, and you have a sub 1% vacancy rate, which is really key when you're looking at cap rates. In Victoria, I might get a 4.5%, 5%, maybe even a 5.5%, depending on the marketplace, and I still have a sub 1% vacancy rate. So as long as my vacancy rates are really low, I would take the better return than maybe staying over here, because I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more and more money from the mainland start to go over there in the commercial capacity because of how tough the marketplace is here. So when people the more demand comes in for the product, the cap rates at say a 5 or 5.5 are very attractive versus we're used to 2.5, 3 over here. Even at 4.5, I think it's attractive to a lot of people over here. So that's where I think there'll be an opportunity to probably gain some equity in the coming years, as I think some money shifts more towards the island.
So in thinking about what you would buy, maybe a scenario where you have no budget, what are you buying in Victoria?
I'd probably buy an office building.
An office building. Okay.
Right? There's not a lot of product in that marketplace, and you look at a lot of the major developers over there, they're building office buildings because the demand is coming in. Vancouver's office market is ridiculously competitive right now. Lease rates have gone through the roof, purely driven by tech. WeWork spaces, co-working spaces are taking up a lot of the square footage. And I think a lot of these employers that maybe have multiple offices around the province or around the country or North America, Victoria is a very viable option for them. And they haven't really had a major office push yet. So I think if we kind of echo what's happened here, but on a smaller scale, Victoria, I think office market will definitely see vacancy rates decreasing and probably rental rates going up.
And if so, an office building sounds great. We have a lot of kind of mom and pop investors on the show, and I think every time you're on, we hear from people that are kind of shifting their focus primarily from residential to potentially commercial. If you're working with a budget of, say, I don't know, let's say between 500,000 to $1 million, what are you buying over in Victoria?
I think I'd go back to the strata retail. And I think because there's not a lot of opportunity over there, a lot of the buildings, like I said, are heritage downtown, so they're not stratified. So if you're buying them, you're buying the building that kind of comes with it, and there's not a lot of redevelopment potential, obviously. So I think if you got retail in kind of the sub-markets, Old Town, or even the Harris Green District, as the population comes in, that's going to push demand on the retail side. And if there's not a lot of product there, you're going to see rates start to probably creep up in the coming years. That's where I think probably your smart money is, both short, medium, and maybe long term.
Yeah. Is there, before we went live here, you mentioned that, there's two thoughts here. One is that you've kind of framed it a couple times as Victoria being sort of 10 years behind Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Rick sort of talks about foreign buyers in Vancouver and then offshore buyers going to Victoria, which are buyers from the Lower Mainland. Do you see opportunities, like how is the culture different? And is there an opportunity for people from the Lower Mainland who have operated in this kind of fast-paced dynamic market to go over to Victoria and take advantage of kind of that sleepiness, as you just
I think the buying cycle is different, right? Over there, it seems like a lot of product is either built or getting close to being completed before it really starts to turn. Versus over here, you tend to see things that go on sale in a showroom and they're sold out months, years in advance.
Right.
And I think that mindset over there has sort of never sort of been the same as we had over here. And I think as you see Vancouver developers, Vancouver tenants, and Vancouver investors slowly look at that marketplace over there and realize the opportunities that do exist, that I think, you'll start to see that buying cycle change. And that will force sort of the local buying cycle to sort of pay attention to, maybe we can't wait for it to be 75% done now before we go buy our product.
Right.
And talking to people over there, on the commercial standpoint, a lot of the retail and even some of the offices, they're almost built or close to being finished before they really start to see things get under contract. Versus over here, we're buying it the day it gets released if we can get our hands on the right opportunity. So I think that buying cycle, there's an opportunity for people over here that have seen what happened firsthand and sort of buy into the same game plan that's going to happen over there. I think there's an opportunity for Vancouver money probably to go in there and buy some stuff early. I know, like for our offices where we're going to be putting our stuff on Johnson Street there, we acquired more retail space than what we needed in anticipation that market's going to follow. And I think we had to go to the developer directly to get them to sell it. They're probably 3 or 4 stories into a 20-story build, which none of the product for the commercial side has sort of been put on the market for lease or for sale yet. I think it's just the mindset. Versus over here, you see stuff go for sale and for lease before there's even a hole in the ground. So I think us getting into the stage we did is a good position on our part. I think as that market really develops around us, we'll sort of have that cycle of the lease rates increasing and all that stuff like we talked about.
And is the present market really busy in Victoria right now in the commercial area?
It seems like it's picking up a lot.
Okay.
You mean it's come a long way? Like I think last time I looked, I think their office vacancy rate was probably like in the low to mid sixes. That's down probably from mid to high sevens over the past couple years. So it hasn't experienced what we do here, where there's like almost a lineup at times to look at, say, an office space. Right. So you got to sort of compare apples to apples. But I think from a commercial standpoint, it's picking up a lot. We're seeing a lot more see things sell through. I know like the multifamily market has seemed like it's done very, very well over there the past couple of years. So we want to get into that marketplace now, and then as it grows and transitions upward, we're part of that. I mean, a good thing to do if you're ever sort of wondering about the success of an area is just even drive around. If you drive around and you see lots of vacancy around there and it's got a cold feeling, it kind of gives you a pretty indication of what's going on. Versus if you drive around downtown Victoria, there's not a lot of for lease signs anywhere. You go out to Saanich and it's almost sprawling out of Victoria now into Saanich, and you go to shopping centers out there like Uptown and stuff like that. There's not a lot of vacancy in these marketplaces, which is a good indication of sort of what's to come. And if you sort of see that where there's not a lot of vacancy, that's going to put stress on lease rates eventually. And that's where if you kind of get in at a good point now, hopefully you can ride those lease rates up in the future. With downtown being heritage and with there being some landlocked issues with the water there, I don't think you're in a short-term position where it's going to become overpopulated with retail.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's a supply and demand will probably kick in at some point down the road.
Yeah, there's just going to be supply constraints indefinitely.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Is there, so you guys are big on Victoria. If we're just thinking about the island kind of more broadly, are there other areas you guys are excited about?
Well, I think you can't ignore Langford with the population and the development growth they've had.
Right.
If you look outside of Victoria into like James Bay is an area that seemed like it's coming together. Obviously, we love Nanaimo. We have plans of going there probably in the next 2 years once we establish Victoria. Nanaimo, if you go look on their website or the government website in Nanaimo, the amount of applications that are outstanding for developments, whether it be commercial or residential, is huge. So we monitor that because as people come into these areas, I mean, that's what drives our business eventually. So we monitor it. So we love Nanaimo. Campbell River, I mean, these areas that maybe you never thought before have seen like they've done really, really well. And a lot of it's driven by multifamily because there's been very little vacancy on that side. Mm-hmm. That tends to get people's attention.
So it sounds like you're bullish on the island.
Very bullish.
Generally.
Yeah, overall for sure. And we've done a lot of work over there from our Vancouver office mainly over the past year. So we've had a good chance to sort of experience it, see it. We've been following it really, really closely for almost 3 years now. So we're starting to sort of establish trends and sort of see what's happening. And then we also subscribe to a lot of data networks and stuff like that sort of monitor it over there. So, we're very bullish on the island. We got a pretty big investment going in there.
Right on.
Right. Well, maybe we'll leave it there. But Cory, how can people find out more about you and about William Wright?
Wait a second. Wait.
5-wire?
We do the 5-wire. Hey, this is his 7th time on. We got to do the 5-wire every time.
But I already know what advice Cory would give us 18-year-old
Pocket squares.
Go buy a pocket square.
Well, we'd love to have you do the 5-wire. Can we do a Victoria version?
For sure. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. So what is your favorite neighborhood in Victoria?
I like downtown. Victoria.
It sounds like the opportunities there from this discussion are kind of incredible. What is your favorite bar or restaurant in Victoria?
You know what? One time I went to I think it's called the Bard and Banker or something like that right downtown. It's kind of a really old English pub. The food was amazing, great atmosphere. I would definitely go back.
Where would you bring someone from out of town?
First place.
If you're visiting?
I was over there and I went and stopped off at Miniature World, believe it or not.
Miniature World.
And it's incredible. It's incredible the detail.
Miniature World.
That's where Secret buys his clothes.
You know what? My wife and daughter went to Miniature World. They were super impressed.
Picture Legoland like in your house. It's right. The detail's amazing.
I didn't even hear that. I didn't even catch that secret joke.
So I would definitely go to Miniature World. I think it's called Miniature World.
Yeah.
Right.
On the backside of the Empress there.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm still thinking of that secret joke.
No.
Okay, so the next question we got for you is, what have you bought in the last, say, year or so? And you've answered this before, but we got to get another one from you. Under $500 that's changed your life.
So I've listened to you guys lots, and I see how sort of a lot of developers have deferred this to stuff they've bought other family members. So I'm going to say, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we finally discovered that we got to buy them both the exact same thing. So that has definitely changed my life because you don't have them biting each other or pushing each other to share a toy. Now they each have their own shark. So
Right.
So that
Some
one-
kids presumably want both toys, even if they're the same.
Well, they want all toys, everything. Doesn't matter what it is. So buying them both the same thing was changed my life in a good way.
What about, and we got to ask you, because I think you missed this one, Matt, but what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Slow down. I think when I was younger, I thought I had to take over the world.
Yeah.
The first day, I didn't realize. I thought Rome
This
was
coming
built.
from a guy who's literally taking over British Columbia.
I thought when I was younger, I thought that I had to, Rome was built overnight.
Right.
And I thought I'd be the first one to do everything. And I remember my dad always telling me, slow down, slow down, slow down. And it never sort of clicked in until I got to my mid 30s. But that would be definitely something I'd tell my younger self is slow down. It's not going to happen overnight.
Okay, perfect. So how can people find out more about William Wright Commercial and also a little bit about the new office in Victoria?
Yeah, so you can find us at williamwright.ca, and that's WRIGHT. We have offices in Langley, New West, and Vancouver. People are always welcome to stop by anytime. And then we're looking to get a temporary office open in the Victoria marketplace early 2020, and then into our permanent space once completed. Hopefully, fingers crossed, end of 2020, and we'll be located at 854 Johnson Street. Probably unit numbers still to come. But they can reach all of us through our website there. We're also launching WilliamWrightApartments.ca, which will be a dedicated multifamily site.
Oh, right on.
You kind of see that a lot of multifamily buyers, it's sort of a very unique asset class. They're government monitored leases. A lot of people that buy and sell multifamily only buy and sell multifamily, versus someone who buys retail will also probably buy industrial or office. So we have a dedicated website coming out with reports and all that stuff up to date. For the multifamily buyers.
And you guys, we should point out, you produce some pretty interesting reports. Like, it's worth signing up to your guys' newsletter.
We have the William Wright Review, which is sort of a video blog we do every month, and we either feature a project or an area. We have one coming up. We'll actually be in Victoria on Wednesday shooting, which we're going to talk all about the Victoria marketplace and why we're going over there and sort of announce that we're coming over. But we just did one on the microbrewer industry, which has completely changed how a lot of people look at areas.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're going to have you back to talk about that for sure.
Love to.
Yeah.
Love to. So anything we can do to sort of provide an education level out there for people would be great.
Right on. Well,
Perfect.
Thanks so much for your time again, Cory. Best
for having
dressed
me.
guy in the business. There's no question about
This
that.
is only for you guys.
This is amazing.
All weekend I was trying on different outfits to see which one you guys would like best.
Well, it's that one. Clearly. Excellent. Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Okay.